From Nueva, we headed directly north along the coast road. The Sinai Peninsula is about the size of Tasmania, so the distances involved are not large. Our next destination was Israel, where the Dead Sea is located. But first we stopped for some supplies at Israel's port in the Gulf of Aqaba, the town of Eilat. Israel enjoys a noticeably higher standard of living than many of its Arab neighbours. Prices are noticeably higher too, but at least we could get certain items that were hard to find at Nueva.
The road north from Eilat runs parallel to the Jordanian border through a dry and dusty landscape. The first body of water one comes to is the Dead Sea. At nearly 400 meters below sea level, it is the lowest lake on Earth. The water has a salt content many times more than ocean water, giving it a much higher relative density. This means that objects float much higher than normal, as Jim, Tor, and Mark demonstrate here. Just a bit too salty for the sensitive nose of a dog. The lake was once a lush and fertile valley. Large cities flourished nearby. Ron's research led him to locate the ashen remains of Sodom near the southern end of the lake, and nearby the ashen remains of Zoar, still visible after nearly 4,000 years.
Zoar,
Z-O-A-R. Zoar is south of Mount Sodom. If you visit there, there's a sign, an orange-colored sign that points off to the west and says Mount Sodom. You go down and take the highway up towards Beersheba. When you get up to the top of that big grade, there's a pull-off up at the top. Very stiff wind blows up there all the time, and you can look right down on the remains of Zoar and get pictures of it.
The distinct square outline of the city is still visible, as this color-enhanced photograph clearly shows. The square shape is what one would expect to find, since ancient cities were often built within a square boundary of defensive walls. Erosion from wind and rain means that virtually nothing recognizable remains. But these mounds are obviously anomalies, structures destroyed long ago. The best preserved remains found by Ron are below Masada. Masada is the hilltop fortress overlooking the Dead Sea, 434 meters above the lake level. Directly below Masada are two well-preserved areas, believed to have been parts of Gomorrah. When viewed from Masada, it's obvious that time and weather have eroded these remains as well, but the remains stand out quite stark from the surrounding desert.
But I got no doubt it was a city. Yeah. And it looks very much like city walls, doesn't it? But
within these areas are many unusual shapes. These certainly defy attempts to explain their origin by natural causes. When examined closely, their uniqueness becomes even more apparent. Many others are now beginning to realize just what these formations represent.
The bus driver that was with us the last time in December, he says a lot of Israelis comes here now to see Gomorrah. They know about the place and there are many people coming down here.
Turn off. Just before, see, you tell people before this barrier if they ask.
Entering the remains, one is immediately impressed by the magnitude of them. These were big cities. Prior to the destruction recorded in the Bible, a large population had flourished here for some time before the sudden destruction came. Recent findings reveal just how large that population was. The ancient Canaanites buried their dead, and archaeologists across the valley from this site have found huge Canaanite burial grounds. Conservative estimates put the number of these graves at well over 1 million. Despite nearly 4,000 years of weathering, remarkable shapes can still be seen in the ash. Such as this sphinx shape, and the remains of a double wall extending at 90 degrees.
It's fallen down from up high. That's quite hard.
The remains consist largely of calcium sulfate. Calcium sulfate is a byproduct when limestone is burnt with sulfur. This is exactly what one would expect to find. This shows up in the ruins as alternating layers of pure calcium sulfate and calcium carbonate with silicates, remains of limestone and other materials used in the construction of these cities.
And very much like ash. Whereas the white layers remain fairly hard. Bizarre. It feels like, well, icing sugar or something. Yeah. You don't get that from river flows.
No. It's just incredible.
Got any sulfur balls in it?
Yeah, here's a few little ones, but there's some massive ones around.
The sulfur balls are located in the upper parts of the ashen remains. This would indicate that they were burned from the top down. That's where the thermal ionization patterns or firestorm patterns are laid out in the ash, is at the top, near the top.
Are they all along the same line?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, yep. There's a little ball and there's a few there. And they're just sitting in the layers of straight ash.
The brimstone has been tested and proves to be extremely pure elemental sulfur combined with small amounts of magnesium.
This will be a really nice sample.
In fact, it's so pure it burns very, very easily, as Aaron demonstrates here.
Oh, that's strong. Well, we need some potassium nitrate and some carbon.
Yeah, what would that be?
It's in the Bible that it will be an eternal fire. It is still burning.
Well, that
The fumes it gives off can be overpowering.
You have to go back to the Bible and check.
The Bible describes 5 cities that were destroyed, and to the north of the Dead Sea is another of the sites identified by Ron. This one was the city of Admah. Again, the white ashen ruins stand out distinctly from the surrounding desert. This area smells of sulfur, yet there is no geothermal activity here. A closer investigation revealed some interesting evidence.
Some interesting glass-like material here.
As with all sites examined, it is far above the Dead Sea, too high to attribute to sedimentary deposits from the lake. And again, symmetrical formations are apparent. For example, these rectangular shapes, which perhaps were once stone blocks.
Where's that sulfur you found, the big bit?
Yeah.
Oh yeah? It's got a good bit.
And brimstone is present in the ash.
Another lot of carbon.
And here charcoal can be found in the ash also.
Charcoal. Amazing.
I don't think it burns as hot as Ron says because of the carbon wood. So you break that open.
There's some charcoal.
Charcoal stuck inside it.
Look at that, that's charred wood. That's definitely charcoal.
The evidence found supports the biblical account of how these sites were destroyed. The next step was to have these samples analyzed to determine their exact composition.
Want to stand in front of it. but even so, they actually are absorbed by air, so the measurements bombard the surface and all the atoms then absorb some of that radiation and release it, like fluoresce it at a certain wavelength, and the amount of fluorescent radiation is proportional to the amount of the element.
Okay. Can only be a sulfate.
That test showed that the ash was a sulfate, a byproduct of a sulfur reaction, which is what we'd expect.
Yes. Shifting position now. It's actually already begun a sort of scan of 12, 14 scans.
The analysis revealed that the brimstone was almost pure elemental sulfur, typically about 98%, with a measurable amount of magnesium. The white ash is pure calcium sulfate. What stands out is how clean the samples are, with a conspicuous lack of trace elements. This is consistent with ash from an intensely hot furnace, exactly what one would expect to find from the account in Genesis 19. Is it possible that the Dead Sea sites are the result of geothermal activity?
Yes, and been a few people have a hat.
The sulfur from Gomorrah is distinctly different to sulfur found in geothermal regions, such as Rotorua in New Zealand. The white colour of the sulfur is the result of it being exposed to high temperatures for a period of time, as happened at Gomorrah. By contrast, sulfur from geothermal regions is usually no more than 40% pure. The scenario is this: the cities, built of limestone, which is calcium carbonate, had sulfur and fire rain down upon them. The principal byproduct from this reaction was very pure calcium sulfate, which is what the ashen remains consist of. This is exactly what one would expect to find, based on the account in Genesis 19.